The Ohio Harness Horsemen Association presents Freshman Focus. A look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by El Dorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 11th with the next generation July 1st. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. Now here's your host, Roger Houston.
Welcome to another edition of Freshman Focus. We've made the trip to MGM Northfield Park to visit with Betty and Nick Clegg about their operation and their 2-year-olds in training here in the Buckeye State. After this message, we'll return to sit down and talk with Nick and Betty.
Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. Sugar Valley's lineup of stallions includes World Champion Down by the Seaside, Lather Up, the fastest horse in harness racing history, Little Brown Jug Champion, Well Said, and the newest stallions to the Sugar Valley lineup, Adios Champion, Catch the Fire, and the son of Hambletonian champion Muscle Hill, Marseille. Sugar Valley Farm, the home of champions.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus with Nick and Betty Clegg. Nick, your introduction to harness racing actually came through your father.
Yeah, he was the assistant general manager of Quad City Downs when I was very young. And then he ended up building Midwest Horse Spa, which was, for the time, top-of-the-line training center that had an Olympic-sized swimming pool, big barns, turnouts, a nice track. And that evolved into, ended up training horses. He trained horses under like Bob Phillips and Herb Croninger. And from day one, when I went there, 8 or 9 years old, I wanted to be a driver. I mean, that was the glory of driving horses just seemed something I could do.
Betty, your introduction to harness racing, though, came through Nick.
Yes. I grew up in a small town, and there was racetracks all around me, but there was no advertising, so I never knew harness racing even existed until I met Nick.
Nick, as briefly as you can, explain the story of how you initially met Betty.
Make a long story short, my father and I were racing at Hawthorne, and they had double headers, and we had been up for 2 days. I get home, the phone rings, Lippy, now imagine Lippy being 5'10", calls me and says, "Hey, I know where some girls are." I said, "I can't. My father's sleeping, don't call back." I go in, I go to sleep. I wake up to Larry looking at me saying, "You're coming with me or I'm waking your father up." We go to, pissed off. I go there, hung out with him and these girls. To be a jerk, I was telling bad jokes, blah, blah, blah. But before I left, I wrote on Betty's telephone book, "If you ever want to get married, call me." That's it.
Betty, did you have the same feelings when you finally talked to him?
It took me 3 weeks to call him because I was so nervous I didn't know what to say. But I don't know, there was just something about him.
Yeah. Well, it's been good for you guys, and you've experienced, I'll put it in your words earlier when I talked to you, poverty to making a good living in harness racing. Ups and downs, and it wasn't easy really getting started, was it?
Brutal.
You want to explain just what brutal is?
You know, when we were kids, of course I wanted to be a driver and I wanted to be a leading driver. So we had no money. So only thing we could do is buy $500 or $600 horses, try to patch them up, do the best we could at cheap tracks, racing for 900 or whatever. And you know, that evolved into some success. But with success, if we had anyone in our lives that could have helped us a little bit, it would have fast forwarded so much, but we didn't.
At some point in your career, you were shoeing maybe 20 horses a day or 15 to 20 horses a day. How did that all come about?
We were in Florida, literally starving to death, racing horses, and I was up on the fence talking to Wally Hennessy, one of the greatest to ever do it. And he said, you know, Nick, there's only 3 people in this business that make any money. The catch drivers, the vets, and the blacksmiths. And I scratched my head and I thought about it for a second. I said, well, I'm one of those. Within a matter of 1 week, I had went back, we packed up, went to New York, and we got so lucky. I mean, we started shoeing horses for Larry Stahlbaum, Richie, Renee, Chris, and so we went from having no money to, as hard as I work, if I can do 10 or 20 or 25 in a day, pretty soon we will have money. And my daughter had mentioned in Florida, she's, you know, I know it's hard to explain, she's one of those smart people. And when she had said to me one day in passing, Dad, I need to figure out what college I'm going to. And she's only 14 or 15 at the time. Well, I've got $6. You know, that college stuff, I didn't realize it until then. It's real. You actually have to pay those people. So to go back and to shoe horses and get lucky enough to shoe for people that can afford to pay you was life-changing.
Your daughter you're quite proud of because she's graduated college now?
Yes, she graduated summa cum laude from University of Scranton last year, which is amazing. I mean, I can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, and Betty, it must come from her because...
Well, it's just like the horses. It's the dam.
Obviously.
The stud does mean
Obviously. I got through 3rd grade, and I didn't exactly do that with flying colors.
Now, your driving career started in 1991, if I remember correctly. Do you have any idea how many wins you've had in your career?
I have no... You know, I'm such a powder that when things are going good, man, I love racing horses. I love it and this and that. And, you know, I was the leading driver at 3 or 4 tracks in 96 or 97. And one day in the middle of the races, I grabbed Eric Goodell and I said, you know what, I think I'm done. And at the time, I think we had 55 horses in Michigan. And 2 days later, we had 2 horses and we moved back home to Illinois. So, you know, we talk about wins. I mean, when you work as hard as somebody like Aaron or those guys do, you're going to win a lot of races. But if you quit often, you're not going to win.
Well, you've got 801 career wins, and you're batting at about 12.5% wins. And that's pretty good for a guy that doesn't make a full-time career of driving horses, not a catch driver.
You know, I've done the math, and like Dave Pallone and I together have like 22,000 wins, you know what I mean, with the 2 of us combined. Yeah.
You think he'll ever catch you?
No.
Now, Betty, as a trainer, you've got 298 wins in your career. That coupled with Nick's 405 means this couple's won 703 races for just about $3.2 million. Where'd all the money go?
Oh, I have at least $12 left, somewhere along the line.
Nick Clegg is never lost for words. Let's get to the horses now. How do you go about determining what you want in your stable? You've got, what, 23 2-year-olds this year. How do you determine which ones you're going to get?
No idea. No idea. Last year we had 1 homebred, and if you have 1, you have to have 2, and that turned into 5 or 6. So we had already purchased 4 or 5 last year, and I seen that there was, I think, 3 in Harrisburg. And I called my buddy and I said, I'm sure I'm not going to be able to afford them, but I want to get one of these Ohio breds that's in the sale. And he called me as Duncan, the great Duncan, was going into the sale ring and said, what do you want to go to? And I said, well, I've got about 10,000 bucks. I would rather him go closer to 5,000, but I'm sure he, you know, on paper he looked like he was worth 30 or 40. And I'm extremely nervous as it's going through. Well, he ended up bringing 7,000 bucks. I have no idea how, I don't know why, but as the saying goes, way better to be lucky than good.
Was Duncan a star from the beginning?
He was more like whatever the opposite of a star is. You know, like a bad penny, a Canadian quarter in a phone booth that doesn't work. There's just whatever bad is. I get him, I train him down on April 10th, which is my birthday. I trained him in 239. And I came in and I told Betty, I said, this may be the worst animal we've ever had. And maybe 6 weeks later, we go to qualify him. I didn't even want to qualify this rodent. And he had the inside and he kind of fell to the front and he made a break. And when he made a break, I kind of checked him and scolded him. And I went in eighth, no word of a lie, in about 11 seconds. And I come back to the barn here and I told Betty, I said, you know, she loved him from day one, even when he was terrible. And I thought he was terrible. I told Betty when I come in, this might be something special.
Yeah. And last, a week or so ago, second in Ohio Sire State competition right here at Northfield.
He never ceases to amaze me. His greatest attribute is he never gets tired. You know, he can overcome my bad driving or my bad shoeing or the weather or whatever. He's the type of horse, hey, listen, buddy, I need you to go jog 5 miles. Oh, okay. Hey, man, I need you to eat this grain. Oh, okay. Listen, bro, I know you got the 8-hole and you're going to have to be parked every step, but I need you to make us some money. We really need it. Okay, that sounds good, Nick. I'll go do that. Just true champions, born and then ruined, never made.
Betty, is your attitude a bit more on the rosy side than Nick, quite a bit?
well, like every time Nick will come in with something new, it's just like, okay, I'll call my daughter and I'm like, oh, Kimber, you cannot believe what Dad just did. And but then she's like, Mom, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I'm just gonna put my head down and I'm just gonna keep working. That's what I'm gonna do. So I try to keep an upbeat, you know.
You've raced in Illinois, New York, Florida. You're at home now in Ohio. You love it, don't you?
I have a saying, you have to be somewhere. So in New York, where everybody kind of is in the area, in Middletown, New York, we lived on the outskirts, but it was 21 minutes to any Walmart. Monticello, Matamoros, Middletown, it's 21 minutes. So you get so used to and accustomed to traveling. Well, right after coronavirus kind of slowed down, I came here to see Aaron Merriman, and I couldn't believe how much the area had built up. It was unbelievable. And when you're in New York, you just drive and drive and drive. Well, now Chick-fil-A's right there, Walmart's right there. And let's not forget, the difference between the East Coast and Ohio is this is still a sport here. This is still the loving game of harness racing. Out there, it's big business. It's just different. Here you get the cost, but here people still love racing horses. It doesn't matter if you're at a county fair with a bag-gated horse or whatever. People still have that adrenaline. Where out there they don't have it. It's business, business, business.
You've got 23 two-year-olds this year. Are they all Ohio breds, or have you got some other state breds?
You know, we had one homebred and we purchased 24. And many people have said, why did you buy all Ohio breds? Well, listen, when you take every dollar you have and you buy 24 yearlings, I knew I wouldn't have gas money to make it anywhere else. I had no choice. All Ohio.
That's good. Glad to do it. You've chose 11 horses to look at today. I noticed we got 4 trotters and 7 pacers we're going to look at. Do you like training trotters?
You know, I'm bad at both, so it really doesn't matter. You know, as the saying, I just said a second ago, true champions are born and then ruined, never made. Well, listen, I seen George Teague buy so many $10,000 or $15,000 yearlings and turn them into champions. Maybe he is special. Maybe he has a gift, or the Brian Browns of the world. Maybe they are better. But when it comes to the fact that Betty and I acquired Duncan and made him somewhat of a champion, maybe he made us a champion. So
Yearlings come to you. The breaking process. Is Nick Clegg like the vast majority of trainers anymore, that they leave the breaking to the Amish to do for them?
Nick single-handedly broke every single baby this year by himself.
You mean nobody riding on the side of the cart or anything?
Nick did it all, but he had a third line to hold on to, as so if a horse did something wrong, he could go this way, and then if they didn't move, he got off the jog cart and pushed them forward. He told me, he said, stay out of the way, I don't want you to get hurt. So Nick did it literally all by himself.
And within 3 or 4 days, they were doing everything you wanted them to do.
This is gonna sound terrible, but I tend to get Betty into situations that she doesn't exactly love. But, you know, and I mean this wholeheartedly, Betty would follow me anywhere I went. If I got in the chia pet business, she'd build chia pets. That's just how she is. She's the most loyal, devoted wife ever. But my thought was, okay, Nick, you now have 25 yearlings, and the way my luck rolls, I figure I'll probably die in the next 3 or 4 days, and she'll be stuck with 25 yearlings. So I had such a mindset to have these things bomb-proof broke in case, you know, Uncle Nickel kicked the bucket. She wouldn't, any nitwit can jog these things once they're broke. But until then, it's funny because before I had the babies, man, I had buddies over here and everybody come to see us or whatever. Once we got those babies, ain't nobody visiting. Nobody wants to come around because, you know, the buddy system, a friend in need is a pest.
No trouble getting horses in and out of stalls. They went right to the treadmill. You must be doing something right.
I'm a big believer in breaking them. Like, my mentality and my mindset, I'm not mentally strong enough to deal with an unbroke baby. I can't handle it. I've seen the superstar trainers get those things to pacing 51 at 2, but they can't walk into a bath stall. I'm not mentally strong enough for that. So when I say they're broke, day 3, they had shoes on, would walk on the treadmill, be able to go out of the barn by themselves, and I would come off the track faster than you should, 100 miles an hour, and they had learned by day 4 or 5, when their face gets to the cross ties, they stop. So I got lucky with that.
Folks, now you know Nick and Betty Clegg. Their operation is quite different from those of other trainers in the sport of harness racing. And after this message, we'll return and take a look at the 11 yearlings, now 2-year-olds, in the Clegg operation.
Racing is back at El Dorado Scioto Downs. Catch the excitement all summer long in the new grandstands. Live racing every Tuesday through Saturday nights. Tuesday and Wednesday post time is 3:15. Thursday through Saturday, the first race post time is 5:50. Mark your calendar to see the future stars with a $150,000 Next Generation on July 1st. Horse players earn points with the new Caesars Rewards program. El Dorado Scioto Downs. Live racing is back.
Your animals provide unconditional love. When they hurt, you want the best care available to help them enjoy life again. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center is here for you and for them. From heart disease to cancer, diabetes to broken bones, and 24-hour emergency services, Ohio State's team of experts make a difference in the lives of animals and the family members who love them. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus with Nick Clegg. This is a 2-year-old colt, Somewhere Up by Lather Up, out of Somewhere Sunny by Some Beach Somewhere.
This is a pretty good dude. He's a Lather Up, which there's 2 parts to the story on Lather Up. For starters, nobody knows that I owned I'm Gorgeous for a while. I bought I'm Gorgeous out of the breeding shed for 2 reasons. I wanted to make him a Yonkers horse if possible, race him for 8 or 9 months, and then I registered him in New York because all of my buddies, including myself, all have a mare or 2, and I thought that he was a great sire, would be a great sire. So I registered him in New York. I only, maybe for $1,000 or whatever. Well, after I did it, all my buddies said, oh, he won't make a sire. I'm not breeding to that thing. So if they're smarter than I am, so they didn't breed to him, I didn't breed to him. 3 months later, you know what came? Lather Up. Probably, well, it was the fastest horse in the world for a long time. The second part of buying him, my cousin Lane Sawyer, you know, he was a huge fan of Lather Up. So I think he might have been the first colt that we purchased. So he's a really, really exceptional colt.
Is he exceptional out on the racetrack?
He, you know, everything about him from day one has been good. He's small, but he's mighty.
Which is more important, a big horse or a small horse? Or
I don't know. I mean, I've seen champions so big you couldn't see over them, and I've also seen Bit of a Legend who was, you know, a midget and a great horse. So
size is nothing, it's the heart.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I've had some really bad big horses.
This is the 2-year-old colt, Somewhere Up by Lather Up. This is the colt Deontay by Team 6 out of In the Grippers by Stephen 1. Now he's standing on the high part of the stall, but is he pretty big to begin with?
Yeah, he's a big dude.
How's he been?
He's good. Roger, I know I have a story for everything, but I can't help myself. We had sent a horse that I thought was a good horse to New York, and he didn't do very good. I bring him back here, I send him to Buffalo. He runs off the screen. The next week, wins again. The next week, Betty's trying to stay awake to watch this horse race. She falls asleep. She wakes up right after the race. And no word of a lie, the horse won by 15. She wakes up and she goes, how did he do? I said, Betty, he win 54 in the Grippers. I've never said the words in the Grippers before in my life. 4 days later, I'm at the sale. There's a baby. Guess who the mother is? In the Grippers. I have to own this thing. So that's how we come up with this.
How's he been though?
He's okay. You know, he trots good. He's okay. I don't know if he has talent or not. Everybody that jogs him or trains him that know what they're doing, like Joe Cramp, loves him. He knows way more about those trotters than I do, so I'm taking his word that he's okay.
As a trotter, how about you? Have you been with him so far?
I think he's been in 16.
Is that about right to qualifiers in June?
You know, I don't know. I know like the Ron Burks of the world have to train all these things and get them ready and qualify them real quick. Betty and I own them all, so we don't have to answer to anyone except our creditors.
You let the horse do the speaking?
100%. We're in no hurry.
This is the 2-year-old colt, Deontay by Team 6. This is the 2-year-old colt, Janelle Granny by Fear the Dragon out of Beach Granny by Some Beach Somewhere. And you told me when we first got here today, when he went to the track, the score is 13-0 in favor of Janelle Granny. What do you mean by that?
It's okay to quit and give up sometimes and know that you lost. And bottom line, when it come from fighting with Janelle Granny and trying to beat him and make him what I wanted him to do and be, I lost. So now I just do pretty much what he wants to do. A few things. He is a Fear the Dragon. And I heard a lot of bad things about Fear the Dragon, and I didn't understand what they meant. Well, I don't think it has anything to do with their talent, because most of them are very talented. They're just very difficult horses. And when I say difficult, Janelle Granny's a little bit more difficult than normal. Did you ever see the video where the two guys are on the auger, and the auger gets out of hand, and they have to back away, and this auger's going 1,000 miles an hour, and only thing you can do is stand there and wait for it to run out of gas? I ran out of gas. Way before he did. He's been my favorite from the anything that has this much fight. If he's not a good horse, I don't know what is.
How much you been with him?
I think he's been in 11 or 12, but can run fast.
Run?
Well, pace fast. It's funny because jogging him, you would think he was a 3-claimer. He's foul-gated, he's terrible, blah, 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 blah. But training him, you would think he was a 3-time world champion. Two totally different horses.
Maybe he's got a head on his shoulders.
He's been my pick since day one.
This is the 2-year-old colt, Janelle Granny, by Fear the Dragon.
Maybe he was mad that somebody named this boy Janelle Granny, and that's what he's so mad about. Nevertheless, good dude.
This is the 2-year-old colt, Mindful Amos, by Enterprise, out of Change Your Mind by Donato Hanover. You've watched the Rosie Weaver, where she told the story. She didn't want anything to do with Enterprise after having them, their 2-year-old campaign. How's he been?
I think he's exceptional. You know, I have a saying that you should never mix good looks and mistake it for talent. Mm-hmm. Well, he's extremely good looking. Like outside of the stall, he looks like a good horse, mm-hmm. and always has. Like I bought him sight unseen, I think from the select sale, and when he came off the trailer, I was mesmerized. I mean, he looked like a $100,000 yearling, not a $10,000 or whatever I paid for him. I knew I was buying Fear the Dragons, and I knew I was buying Enterprises. For different reasons. Enterprises, I think people had such high hopes for them, and they didn't pan out year one. How many great sires have we seen that the first year everybody's mad at them, and then here they come, Better's Delight? So, you know, everybody that touches this horse believes he's something special. I don't know.
Mindful Amos. I don't know what I want to say about him, tell you the truth. Hopefully you'll do well with him.
It's funny because I'm not a big fan of his name, nevertheless. Every one of these babies, when I scoped them out, man, I went by pedigree and I went by looks and I went by videos and I did this and that. One of the babies I knew I was buying no matter what it brought, even if I couldn't afford it. That's one that we're not mentioning today. That's What's Shakin' Bacon. I mean, how do you not buy a horse by the name What's Shakin' Bacon? I mean, I knew we were owning that thing. Mindful Amos, he just kind of came along.
I don't know if you know Doug Snyder, but with his nickname is Shakin' Bacon.
Oh, yeah? Joe Anderson used to always say, What's Shakin' Bacon? So I had to buy it.
This is a 2-year-old colt, Mindful Amos, by Enterprise.
Great family, this horse.
This is the gelding In His Time by Fear the Dragon, out of We Adore Thee by Western Terror. Is he similar to your other Fear the Dragon?
He might be a touch worse. Not so much on the track, but everything with him is contrary. Mm-hmm. You know, we gave him the nickname the Antichrist early, because if you want to go left, he wants to go right. If you want to go up, he wants to go down. We'll fight you at everything you do in just kind of a hard way. But I think that's just the Fear of the Dragons. I really do. I could see where people get mad at him. And, you know, he's not as tough as Janelle Granny, but he put in a lot of fight. He's a little bit behind all the other ones, and I'm glad he's small, because if he wasn't small, he would be so far behind that he might not make it early. But since he's so little and athletic, I think he's going to be fine. He cut his face. They had to put about 60 stitches in him. Doc Gillis did a wonderful job, by the way. He had ripped his face off. We don't even know how he did it. But he's nice. Everybody that trains him likes him because he's so quick. He's very Walter Payton-like. His athleticism and movement is unbelievable.
Maybe he's got some football skills in him instead of harness.
He's got, well, I know he's got football skills because he's kicked me a few times. If a horse ever needed gelded, ever in the history, this is him.
That brings us to the subject. What determines whether you geld him or leave him as a colt?
Listen, if he was a mare, I still would have gelded him. That's how bad he was. When it comes to gelding him, I know people's a big fan of it. Brian Brown told me I should geld most of them. A lot of people said geld most of them. I don't know. I still believe that they need the muscle tone, and the ones that seemed like you were able to train them and had that kept an attitude. For me, that was the most. When you chased them and they put their ears forward, we're going to let them keep them for a while anyway. The ones that the first time I chased them, they pinned their ears. It's time to go.
Just like football, maybe time's running out in the fourth quarter. This is In His Time by Fear the Dragon.
Very quick, very quick.
This is the filly Sacagawea by Pet Rock out of Cross Threaded by Towner's Big Guy. And Betty has joined us because, Betty, this is your baby doll, so to speak.
Yes, I have a real love for Pet Rocks. Before Duncan, I had Ba Banana. She was an outstanding horse, and there was just something about this one. Like, I think she just might be something special.
Nick, you agree with your wife?
I do, but you know, in pure Nickism form, there's a story. So our daughter Kimber was a vegetarian there for 4 or 5 years, and she did nothing but eat bananas all day long. She would eat 30, 40 bananas a day. It drove me crazy. Well, I'm going through the Delaware County sale book or whatever for the sale, and there's this filly in there by the name of Ba Banana, and it said would be a great broodmare prospect. So I thought, man, we might be able to afford this racehorse. I called and I said, whatever she brings, just buy it, hoping she doesn't bring more than, you know, 6,000 or 7,000. Well, she ended up bringing like 4,500 or whatever, and she ended up making us well over 100,000. And we bought her strictly on the name Ba Banana. So she was a Pet Rock. So 6 weeks ago, when we're counting change to make stake payments, I said to Betty that we weren't staking any of them to the sire stake. Pick one, just pick any one. And this was her pick.
This is the filly Loves Cruising by Big Risk out of Corner Cruiser by Yankee Cruiser. Another Big Risk.
I know nothing about this thing. I don't know if she's any good or not. I really don't. She paces good. She likes her job, but I have no idea if she's any good or not. I know that sounds terrible. I have no idea.
Do you train your horses to get in sets?
Yes.
Is she different? Have you maybe changed?
She was extremely choppy gaited at first, wasn't sure of herself, and in the last month or so, she really seems like she's getting it. Is she a good horse? I'll let you know about 3 weeks from now.
Maybe she's just one of those slow learners.
I don't know if she's slow or a slow learner, or talentless, or full of talent. I have no idea.
Time-wise on the track, is she with the others?
Yes.
That should answer your question then.
I don't know if I'm going as fast as everyone else is. Like we talked about, we don't have to answer to anybody. So, you know, everybody's qualifying their babies and doing all this. We're waiting for, I think, Paulding, where we got to be the first person in history to have 23 in opening day at Paulding, but that'd be us. If we get enough gas money to get there, we'll be there.
Say that again. You'll what?
Be there.
This is Loves Cruising by Big Risk. This is the filly Sunshine and Kisses by Enterprise out of Sun Sentinel by Like a Prayer. And I've always liked Sun Sentinels because of the fact that's the name of the newspaper in South Florida.
She's been phenomenal since day one. Seemed like a champion the first day I jogged her, and seemed like a champion yesterday when she trained. I think she's an exceptional specimen. I can't take any credit for buying this one whatsoever. I was done buying. We were basically out of money. I was all done, and Betty walked by and said, Nick, you surely bought us some filly trotters, right? And I said, well, I bought one. She goes, oh, that's not enough. Well, Betty's not real big on wanting to buy more. She's a buy less type of person. So that was why we luckily got her. I think this one's something special. And if she's not, you can't tell.
What'd you have to pay for?
Maybe she was 10 grand or something, which, I mean, you know, people were down on the Enterprises, and I'm glad they were, because if she was anything but a Enterprise, I think she would have brought real money, looks the part, and can go.
Is there a price range in that 5,000 to 15,000 category?
Yeah, like I said, I seen George buy so many, world champions for 10 or 15,000 bucks, and we went, more with variety and played the numbers game as much as anything. I mean, we thought that if we bought 24, surely one of these things would jump up.
You know, in the early days of Pompano Park, Billy Houghton once told me, when I go to the sale, $40,000 is my top price. Everybody else is going 50 to 100,000. He bought all of his horses 40,000 and under at that point in his career in the late 60s, early 70s.
Did he have any success or no?
I think he did quite well.
I think this is a nice filly. I think she's something special. Like I said, if she's not, then you can't tell by being early.
This is the filly trotter, Sunshine and Kisses by Enterprise. This is the filly Lathsha by Team 6 out of Nakia by Hard Rock and Roll. Another trotter.
I could be wrong because I don't know that much about breeding and how it works or whatever. But this is kind of a 3/4 sister brother to the other trotter, Deontay. I was at the sale, bought him because he's in the grippers. This one's mother, it might be Baloney Lips. Nevertheless, they're very related. They're both Team 6s. They're both by like a mother-daughter thing or whatever. The only reason I bought her was because we bought him. And if you bought him, I thought they were together for a long time and I didn't want to separate them, you know, like two puppies. That's the only reason we bought this one.
Maybe you should tear out half of that stall and so they can see each other and put them side by side.
I never said they liked each other. I just said they were related.
Okay.
She's
See,
very
they are
quick.
Puppies.
Puppies, right. She's very quick, likes her job a lot, very talented. The problem is she's very nervous, extremely nervous horse. Like I want you to imagine if I forced you to take a nap at Dr. Kevorkian's house, she's that kind of nervous. Any little thing freaks out. But I think she's okay.
I don't think I'd take a nap under those conditions.
You would, but it'd only be once.
Once. This is the filly Lathsha by Team 6. This is the gelding Risky Rocker by Big Risk out of Nonstop Rock by Rock and Roll Hanover.
How can you say? Big Risk is, for the lack of a better word, a bootleg down by the seaside, okay? It's the closest that we could afford to a down by the seaside. The only advantage to him compared to all the other ones, being a Big Risk, he's got that beach look. You know, he looks like a some beach somewhere. He's strong. Has a lot of ability. But the rumor that I had heard from a lot of the trainers is the Big Risk seemed to be very good early, and that's their peak. I hope we're wrong on this one because he has the talent, the ability, and the capability to be good. He's strong.
How much you been with him?
I think he went in 2.8 yesterday.
Is that about as fast as you've been with any of them?
Yeah, I couldn't hold him. To be honest with you, he shied from the geese, and I had to chase him. And once I chased him, I was a passenger. So I had no intentions of going that fast, but I'm sure he could qualify today, no problem.
So you know you got the speed. You just hope you can use it when you need to use it.
Will and want are a big factor.
This is the gelding Risky Rocker by Big Risk. That wraps up another edition of Freshman Focus. We'd like to thank Nick and Betty Clegg for giving us some valuable time this morning here at Northfield, and also all of their caretakers as well. And we hope that you'll join us again next week, same time, same location for Freshman Focus.
This has been Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 11th with the next generation July 1st. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. Freshman Focus is a presentation of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association.